I think Scott would drink any other kind of beer as well after going out a few times, so I don't think it's just Narragansett. Anyways, our next speaker has developed creative tax incentives, inventive job credits, expansion programs, and is a connoisseur of ribs. If you need advice on finding the best rib place to eat, he is your man. I believe Dirk's is his first choice, but his true first choice is Rhode Island's economy and especially manufacturing. He has been instrumental in working with Reimer and others to bring new businesses to Rhode Island, helping existing manufacturers, and above all, listening to our needs. It is my pleasure to introduce another friend of manufacturing and a person instrumental in manufacturing growth, Rhode Island's Commerce Secretary, Stefan Pryor.
Dave actually told me we're having ribs for breakfast. That's how we got me here. I'm so honored to be with you. What a spectacular year it's been working with Dave Chenevert and Lima. You all are making tremendous strides. We're so thrilled that one of the main focuses of the legislative session is on manufacturing. And that's because Dave Chenevert has, for years, made specific points about what manufacturers, including our small and mid-sized manufacturers, need in Rhode Island. And that's because professionals like Scott Jensen are getting the job done every way, making the case. And we're so proud to be working under Governor Raimondo, who feels it in her heart. It's in her DNA. You know her family heritage, that manufacturing is part of her family's story in Rhode Island, and she is passionate about making sure that these things happen. I'm so pleased that we have an ornament for Rima by the makers of the Lighthouse ornaments right here in Rhode Island. You know that the Kentucky Derby trophy that was awarded just on Saturday was made in Rhode Island. The Lombardi trophy is made in Rhode Island. The Academy Awards are made in Rhode Island. We're so pleased that Rima is signifying its own preeminence among manufacturers and its emergence as such an effective organization with its own emblem. And you know, on top of that, we know the incredible innovation that occurs here from the nation's submarine fleet and how we develop it and build it right here in Rhode Island, to Agcor in Cranston with its food product of the spirulina, Nano Steel in Providence, which is developing a revolutionary new kind of steel alloy and ways to 3D print steel. The Cooley Group in Pawtucket is working on developing smart billboards. I mean, I could go table to table, you could go table to table and talk about the groundbreaking work that's occurring in Rhode Island. Not every one of these gets an award, gets a trophy, but every single one of you are making an enormous difference, and I do think creating an award-winning environment to do manufacturing. To bolster that point, if you all saw the Projo, what was it, 3 days ago? A site selector based in New Jersey, the Boyle Company, a location consultant, did a hypothetical on where a manufacturer ought to open in the Northeast, and found that Rhode Island, on a cost basis, is beating the competition, sent a number of accolades our way. I think that's because of the incredible work that the Rhode Island Manufacturers Association has been doing for years to pave the way, to break down those regulations that are getting in the way, to ensure that our corporate tax rate remains the lowest in New England and competes for the lowest in the Northeast, to ensure we have no commercial tax on energy, inclusive of no tax on manufacturing, to keep unemployment insurance low, including the $30 million reduction in the last budget. You're making those things happen. Now, are we satisfied with those pieces of progress? Of course not. And with advocates like Barb and like Chris Cowan and like Dave Chenevert consistently at it, you do have a legislative agenda that's before you, and Dave has referenced it. But I'm a policy geek. So I'm going to actually ask you to take a look at this document. It's one of the multiple staple documents you have in front of you, but it's the one labeled the Rhode Island Legislative Policy Proposals for Manufacturers. A number of these very much enjoy Governor Raimondo's support. and have been through the hard work of Nick Audiello of the Commerce team, who's here in the front row at one of the initial tables, Scott Jensen, the Commerce and DLT teams, but most of all, Dave Chenebert and manufacturers who have told us that not enough of the tax code benefits smaller and mid-sized manufacturers and manufacturers that are of a different corporate type from the traditional, the C Corp. We did a survey, Chris Cowan, through your great organization of your membership, and found that 74% of manufacturers responding are not the old-fashioned C Corp structure. Nothing wrong with that structure, but more companies are organizing as S Corps or LLCs or otherwise companies that are manufacturers in Rhode Island. We've also found that 90% of manufacturers in Rhode Island are 100 employees or fewer, 75% are 50 employees or fewer. The vast majority of our shops, of our plants, are smaller. So we need to make sure that the tax code makes them eligible. So for the investment tax credit that lets manufacturers purchase equipment or fit out space in a manufacturing or industrial plant. For the jobs training tax credit that lets you all apply government dollars to help you train your workforce under Scott's DLT. For the R&D that you want to conduct, utilizing, for example, our innovation vouchers, we want to make these things possible for smaller manufacturers and non-C Corps, meaning S Corps and LLCs. That's what the legislation does. It means that these programs will be available to you for the investment tax credit and for the jobs training tax credit that are only available to C Corps currently and therefore lock out the other aforementioned manufacturing types. There will be a redeemable or a refundable tax credit that will let you receive the value of those credits. And the reason that we're doing all of these things is that we know that you all have developed terrific momentum. We know we don't need a firm from elsewhere in the Northeast to tell us. We know that this is a great place to do business for manufacturers and getting better, but these tax advantages matter. And smaller enterprises are the lifeblood of our economy. We also want to help all manufacturers on the talent front. So Real Jobs Rhode Island, Scott continues with millions more dollars that Director Jensen has secured from the federal government. There are 5 different Real Jobs partnerships that are manufacturing focused. The idea of career and technical education has been placed by Barb Jackson and Dave Chenebert at the very top of our agenda, and I want to conclude with this point. You've heard Dave reference it, but it's so important that we invest in Davies Career and Tech High School. You all have made it a priority. There's $3.65 million in the governor's budget, RICAP funds for this purpose. We need to protect those dollars. We need to make sure they get all the way through the process so we can make investment in our young people and create long-term career pipelines for all manufacturers throughout our economy in Rhode Island. This is thanks to your hard work that there is an agenda. We embrace it and we look forward to fulfilling it so that the award at the end of this entire process, it might not be the Lombardi Trophy for every manufacturer, but it is continued success in Rhode Island. Thank you very much, David.